Good afternoon, everybody. How's everyone doing today? So, we're going to continue our reading of the exposure of Scientology. Exposure that they acted like they wanted, but now they're backtracking on what they wanted. Because now that we're exposing Scientology, Scientology is like, we don't want any of that. But yet, they'll relentlessly follow you around. They'll shun you. They'll fair game you. They'll sec check you. For an example, like some of the Scientologists that have followed me around, they go about their day following me around and letting people know how ugly I am. And like I say, have you ever seen David Miscavige in person, folks? Have you ever seen Tom Cruise in person? Have you ever seen those two people in person with your own eyes? Well, I got news for you, folks. I have. I have seen Tom Cruise and David Miscavige with my very own eyes. And yet, Scientology follows me around and calls me ugly. Remember, this is a religion. Never was a Scientologist. Was shunned back in middle school/high school. Fair gamed and still being sec checked and fair gamed. I'm Michael Nelson, enlarged to show texture. We're going to read this chapter 1, the beginning, from Mike Rinder, the book A Billion Years. So here we go. The first time my parents ever heard the name L. Ron Hubbard was in 1959 from our next door neighbor on Victoria Terrace, a road that climbed the brown footholds in the easternmost suburbs of Adelaide, Australia. Back then, there was still so much undeveloped land that our Cape Cod style house, only 4 miles from the city, was across the street from 200 acres of brushland with wombats, kangaroos, and emus. I was 5 at the time, so I don't have any recollection of my parents hearing the name, but it was a moment that would change our lives forever. The neighbor, Ian, had driven 500 miles to Melbourne to attend Hubbard's lectures that expanded on ideas published in his 1950 breakout book, Dianetics, The Modern Science of Mental Health, which promised to help people rid themselves of their fears and trauma, as well as a host of physical ailments. The book was a worldwide phenomenon, making Hubbard a household name and giving him a global platform on which to tour and percolate ideas that would soon morph into Scientology. And that makes sense because the religion came from his drugged out, delusional mind. Ian has described Hubbard's incredible discoveries to my parents and intrigued my mother, Barbara, and father, also named Ian. Bought one of Hubbard's dozen or so books. As they read, they became increasingly convinced that this man had a lot to offer. They were attracted by the promise of eradicating unwanted emotions and insecurities, having better relationships, raising successful children, and maybe even saving the world. Neither of them were religious. They had never attended church, but the idea of being better people and helping the world became a brighter place, which appealed to them, and it did to many others. At the time, I doubt they even viewed Scientology as a religion. To them, it was more along the lines of self-help practice. My father, who was a serial entrepreneur before the term existed, gravitated toward anything that could improve his ability to do business. My mother, a homemaker who sometimes helped out in my father's various business ventures, appreciated the self-improvement angle of Hubbard's philosophy. I think my father was also motivated to uncover the cause of his diabetes as well as an undiagnosed childhood disease. It might have been polio that made his left arm weaker and slightly shorter than his right. Whatever the reasons, they immersed themselves in Scientology, and like many other followers, once they were in, they were all in. Every part of their life was consumed by it. It's another thing that you'll notice that if you're being fair gamed and sec checked by Scientology, they will brag about consuming you. They signed up for and paid for everything in Scientology. Scientology has a price, which must be paid in full before starting. As many courses that taught different aspects of Hubbard's writings as they could. There was a lot to learn about their strange new religion. Hubbard was prolific, writing book after book and delivering hundreds of lectures on his tenets of Dianetics and Scientology. He explains things with invented terms and acronyms, creating a jargon, really a secret code for only those inside the Scientology bubble. That made it difficult for outsiders to comprehend. According to Hubbard, the term Scientology means knowing in the fullest sense of the word, derived from Latin skio, meaning to know, and Greek logos, meaning the study of, while Dianetics is a science of mind from the Greek dia, through and nous, mind or soul. There was little Hubbard did not offer on his opinion on, from the origins of the universe to those he thought were trying to destroy planet Earth. But the fundamental concept behind it all was the theory of the reactive mind. Hubbard claimed we store painful and traumatic memories, which he called engrams, deep in our subconsciousness, and they have negative effect on our physical and emotional health. Dianetics was the only way to get rid of his reactive mind. Virtually nothing escaped his self-proclaimed expertise, and he expounded on all possible subjects with unflinching certainty, from eliminating phobias to raising a child, from curing cancer to increasing your IQ to treating homosexuality. Hubbard decreed in his early books that homosexuality was a perversion. It's kind of ironic because there's a lot of gay and bisexual Scientologists out there. Kind of ironic how all that works, and how things change within Scientology for the worse. Never one to underestimate his own genius. Hubbard proclaimed that his knowledge of life had surpassed that of everyone else in history. His certainty was, and still is, a mantle assumed by his followers, who believe that by studying his works and words, they too have the only true answers to every problem faced by anyone, anywhere, ever. And again, whenever you deal with Scientology, they think that nothing can touch them, right? Right? They think they're invincible. They think they can float. They think they're like these gods trying to save us. But in reality, all they're doing is following around people they shouldn't be following around and spying on people they shouldn't be spying on. How many times, Scientology, do we have to go over this? Never one to underestimate his own genius, Hubbard proclaimed that his knowledge of life has surpassed that of everyone else in history. His certainty was and still is a mantle assumed by his followers, who believe that by studying his works and words, they too have the only true answers to every problem faced by anyone, everywhere, anywhere. Wanted to read that one more time to let you folks know most of these Scientologists are God complectic. So, really, my life was preordained into Scientology, though I attended Burnside Primary School, like all the other kids in our neighborhood. During school holidays, starting when I was 6, my mother would drop me off at the local Scientology center. Scientology calls these organizations, or orgs, in an old 2-story office building near Adelaide's city center It was an unimpressive facility with no outward indication that anything unusual occupied its linoleum covered second floor, sparsely decorated with simple wooden tables and chairs and little else other than the obligatory portraits of L. Ron Hubbard hanging on the walls. The org was headed by two brothers, Jim and Wal Wilkinson, who had studied in Scientology's international headquarters, with Hubbard, who at this point had amassed a small fortune and bought a sprawling country estate near East Grinstead in the south of England. The Wilkinson brothers each had four sons, who, along with me, my younger brother Andrew, my sister Judith, and children from several other Scientology families, were the Scientology kids in Adelaide. It was a small community, but like Scientologists everywhere, we regularly attended study and counseling sessions called auditing and were expected to participate in the routine events designed to keep the flock engaged. Um, and of course, they do a lot more than that. They audit, they sec check, they fair game, they belittle, they cry about any little thing, they complain about any little thing, and then they walk around thinking that there's no consequences to their actions, and they walk around and call people like me ugly and brag about it too. But at the end of the day, it's like, well, if I'm ugly, then why are you following me around obsessively, Scientology? Again, you guys are the ones with the massive problems. During those school holidays, my siblings and I, unlike our school counterparts who slept in and watched cartoons, were sent to do the children's communication course. This was an introductory class designed to give new followers communication skills to improve their relationships, ability to sell, or whatever else they desired. Adults took a similar course. Hubbard stressed that the way to get new people into Scientology is to find their ruin, whether that be insecurities, anger management problems, or self esteem issues, and tell them with absolute certainty that Scientology can help them. They're definitely not like that anymore, folks. The course was sold as a, cannot pronounce this word, panacea for every problem anyone had, in order to get them in the door and participating, at which point other miracles of Hubbard's technology would be revealed. Part of the communication course was a drill known as bull baiting. Its purpose was to help Scientology counselors, called auditors, control their reactions to anything that came their way in counseling sessions, and also get rid of any impulse to flinch from attempted intimidation in life more broadly. Kids participated in these drill sessions too. We would do our best to get another person to react, laugh, crack a smile, something. If they did, it was considered a flunk, and the session would continue until the person had no reaction at all. For us, it was an opportunity to swear, tell jokes, and act a little crazy with the full approval of the supervising adults. Each session was the same. We'd pair up, one coach and one student, both sitting upright in stiff wooden chairs, facing each other, knees about a foot apart, looking into each other's eyes. The coach would start the session, and we were off to the races. Here's a typical play by play. Start. Your mom told me you wet your bed every night. Ha ha, flunk, you laughed. Start. Your mom told me you wet your bed every night. A muffled laugh. Flunk, you laughed. Start. Your mom told me you wet your bed every night. Stone cold, staring silence. Success. Sometimes this would go on for what seemed like an eternity until the bottom was flat, meaning the student no longer reacted in any way to the provocation of the coach. Bull baiting was something we all look forward to dishing out, though not so much to being on the receiving end. This provocation, I now see, helped habituate us to verbal and even physical abuse, which is not a healthy lesson for anyone, let alone children. So basically, all in all, Scientology teaches you to become a more of a violent person at the end of the day than actually a person carrying common sense and respect. My entire life became centered around the thinking of Scientology, translated and passed on to me by my parents. The more Scientology materials they read, the more time they spent in the org, and the more familiar they became with Hubbard's views, the more those ideas permeated into me. Like most young children whose parents are their guideposts, I never gave what they said a second thought or questioned its validity. One of the things they taught me early on was the contact assist to heal bumps and injuries. It seemed very strange the first time my mother tried it on me. When I was about 8, I injured my hand on a stove burner. It was throbbing in pain, and my mother asked to see where exactly it hurt. Then she said, "Okay, we're going to put your hand back where you burned it." At first, I resisted. No way was I going to put my hand back on that burner, even though they then had it cooled. After much cajoling, I placed my hand very gingerly back on the burner, but quickly removed it out of fear. Again, he said, this time I placed it back on the burner, giving it some more time before swiping it away. I did it again and again until it didn't have any reaction. I experienced some relief, and the pain in my hand had subsided, though perhaps only because my heart rate had settled back down after overcoming my initial fear. It seemed to be something that produced results, which is the measuring stick often used in Scientology through the FNC is almost entirely subjective. Do you feel better? Is the question asked. Another technique was the touch assist. This was Hubbard's version of the biblical laying on of hands based on his theories about being in communication with your body. Here we go, folks. I hear this a lot. I hear this all the time from Scientology who fair game me, sec check me, and now they obsessively follow me around and do all kinds of stupid shit. The spirit or the Thetan. How many times have I heard Tom Cruise say that? I'm a Thetan. How many times do you think I heard David Miscavige say that? I'm a Thetan. When shit hits the fan, Scientology loves to use that. They say, I'm a Thetan. The spirit or Thetan is superior to the mind and body and has control over them. But unless the Thetan addresses the body, it cannot heal it. Being in communication is Hubbardese for addressing. The same year that I burned my hand, I fell off my bicycle. I came home crying, and my mother tried this technique on me. She had me lie down on my bed and stay still as she touched me continuously with her finger up and down my body, repeating, "Feel my finger." I never felt its power, but I wanted to believe it was helping and didn't want to disappoint my mother. So I went along and let her think it was working, even though it wasn't. Pretty soon I had convinced myself these methods produce small miracles. Even more important was the theory of overts and withholds. I hear this one utilized by David Miscavige all the time. I'm trying to figure out all of his overts. Right, David? He's got all those overts, right, David? Listen up, Davy boy. Look at all those overts, right, Davy? David Miscavige utilizes overts a lot, folks. Even more important was the theory of overts and withholds. If something had happened to me, I must have done something bad. An overt, right, David? And keeping a secret about such a discreditable action or thought, a withhold, would cause me to be unhappy, right, David? Look at how many overts he has, right, David? Geez, Scientology, for as secret as you guys claim that you are, you guys really stick your nose where it doesn't belong. Kind of ironic, right, Davy? This is a bedrock principle that it turns out has many practical benefits for Scientology, though not so many for its followers. My parents explained the idea in simple terms: clean hands make a happy life, and I agreed it made sense. Like so much in Scientology, Hubbard took a widely universal platitude and bastardized it so much that it ended up bearing little or no resemblance to its original meaning. In Hubbard's world, OWs are the sole reason for all bad conditions and experiences, which is both very convenient and very powerful. When life takes a turn for the worse, or one begins to doubt or question Hubbard or Scientology, the answer lies in uncovering your OWs, right, David Miscavige? Huh? Look at how many overts Michael Nelson has, right, David? Didn't realize I could hear you there, Davy. In Hubbard's world, OWs are the sole reason for all bad conditions and experiences, which is both very convenient and very powerful. When life takes a turn for the worse, or one begins to doubt or question Hubbard's or Scientology, the answer lies in uncovering your OWs. I started to believe I needed to be what Scientology considered responsible and not blame others for my misfortunes. Again, see how they're programming people wrong? It's like, no, it's Scientology. It's people like you that enter somebody's life and flat out destroys it. How many years can I prove that, folks? I can prove that year after year. Let's see where we're at. I needed to find out what I had done to cause whatever happened to me in Scientology. Oh, pull it in. I must have pulled it in, right, David? Right, Thomas? I must have pulled all that in, huh, David and Thomas? And you guys didn't come out of nowhere. You guys just appeared. You said, "We're here to help." No, you entered my life. You have been following me around for years, running your pussy mouths, telling everybody how ugly I am, knowing my life when you should know nothing about me at all. Isn't that correct, David and Tom? Why don't you tell people the fucking truth? Is it that hard, Dave and Tom, huh? Is it that hard to tell the truth? Yeah. As a child, I would confess to being mean to a girl at school or playing with the neighbors at the dump, a vacant lot nearby that was off limits because my mother thought it was very dangerous. The nature of the OW was not really important at that time, only that I felt guilt. Like all good Scientologists, my parents came to believe that the answers to all questions in life were to be found in the words of Ron. In fact, things were often explained to me in those terms. Ron says, "And what would Ron do?" What would Ron do, huh? Well, first of all, I would look at Ron and be like, "Make sure you wipe all that white shit from your nose, Ronald." Ronald took on the mantle of a mortal god in my eyes. His words answered and explained everything. Soon, I too would wonder how Ron would deal with things I confronted in life. We were in the tiny minority, though, the mid 1960s. We saw a backlash against Scientology in Australia, so much so that it was outlawed in the state of Victoria in 1965. Following a government inquiry that outlined the dangers of the self proclaimed religion and its aggressive practices, to say the least, on that one. The 175-page report pulled no punches. The bottom line statement was that Scientology is a delusional belief system based on fiction and and fallacies and propagated by falsehood and deception. That is so right. One more time. The 175-page report pulled no punches, folks. The bottom line was that Scientology is a delusional belief system based on fiction and fallacies and propagated by falsehood and deception. I love this book already. It is so true. It is so true. That's what Scientology is all about. But yet, there's Scientology following around people they shouldn't be following around, sticking their nose where it doesn't belong. Not only do they follow you around, folks, but they try to make you feel guilty about any mistakes you have ever made, and nobody should know about any mistakes you have ever made. But somehow Scientology knows. You care to tell the world's population, David Miscavige? You care to tell the world's population, Tom Cruise, why you know so much about people that you follow around? Maybe one day you'll be man enough, Dave. Maybe one day you'll be man enough, Tom. At this time, being known as a Scientologist in Australia was tantamount to announcing yourself as a witch. Oh man, we're starting out great. Right? Throw it out, throw it out. Right? Throw out Scientology. So we kept our involvement secret, and my parents' Scientology materials and books were stashed in their bedroom closet. So the Wilkinsons' home had been raided by the police, who were looking for some subversive materials. And so the local Scientologists got into the habit of hiding their Hubbard books. Man, the crackdown created a sense of fear of the government that I hadn't felt before. We had to hide who we were, what we did, what we believed. Hubbard claimed the Victoria Inquiry was a massive conspiracy by the medical and psychiatric establishment to destroy Scientology. And we'll leave it right there, folks, because we only got about 2 minutes left. So again, slowly but surely, folks, we are, well, at least I am letting people know what I've witnessed being fair gamed and sec checked by Scientology. Very important that you understand, folks, currently being fair gamed and sec checked. And I don't care how these people deny it, because I know it's true. I know it's true. Scientology has fair gamed and sec checked me for well over 30 plus years now. Yeah, so never was a Scientologist, folks. Never was. That's why I'll be reading these books one after another. I'll show you the other book that I'll be reading after A Billion Years, right? So after this book, I'm going to read this book, A Child X. Child X from Jamie Mustard. So I got a question for you folks before I leave. I got about 1 minute left. How would you feel if Scientology followed you around and called you ugly? Right? How would you feel about that if you hear David Miscavige call you ugly? If you hear Tom Cruise call you ugly, how would you feel? I hear that coming from David and Tom all the time, folks, and their Scientology team all the time. You ever seen Dave and Tom in person, folks? I just laugh. I just smile because it's like, look at you. Look at you, David Miscavige. And look at you, Tom Cruise, in person. We're going to continue this reading on another day. Until next time, this is enlarged to show texture. See ya.